All right, so welcome everyone to the Floriani's Total Control U fonts class. So what I'm going to do is do a screen share and open up my Floriani. You are welcome to follow along on your computer, or you can always just listen in and watch and go back to your computer later with the recording, whatever you feel more comfortable with. I know some people too have two computers. They'll have their cell phone or iPad watching the Zoom while they're on the computer as well. Whatever is best for you guys. All right, let's get this share screen up. Oops. Okay, so here is my Floriani. I already have gone past a little window wizard there that asks if I want to do a new page or anything like that. So if you are following along, make sure you open up a new file. My Floriani may look a little different than yours because I have the quilting program, the Total Quilter program, which adds into Floriani, so I may have some extra icons that you may not. And some of mine, it looks like, are still, are they hidden? Yeah, I still have a couple hidden. I tried to change my screen resolution so it'd be easier to see, but apparently I still have a couple hidden icons. All right, so there was a new update that came out as well. Check on when that date was, just so you guys know. So if you don't have the recent version, it's not a big deal. There wasn't any huge updates done to the program on the lettering side. I just wanted to get that date to you guys if it ever loads, but apparently my computer doesn't want to load that information. Let me see if it'll tell me here. No, well, the current build that we're working with is 3718. To check what version your Floriani is on, you can always go under Help and hit About, and that tells you what version you're on. And you can also hit Check for Updates. And if mine actually loads, which it looks like it's never going to load, we're going to ignore that. It'll tell you what build you should be on. So usually for classes, if you're doing a Floriani class, try to check to make sure you're at the most recent version. Because if you just install Floriani, you may be at a very old version, and some things may be different. Okay, so this little letter T here on our left-hand side, little pink letter T, that is our text function. If we click on that, it gives us some of our basic options. If I click T and then click again, as you notice, no lettering just magically pops up on the screen. I have to tell this program that I want to apply it. So I'm going to left click on the screen. There we go, and my text pops up. Just going to move my zoom bar here. Can I do it in the bottom? There it goes. So once I have my text here, this is my lovely my text. It always pops up with the words my text, and it always gives you the last font you worked in on Floriani. It'll automatically pop up with that font. I was doing FFA jackets, which is why I have Christina, because that's the FFA font that I always go for. And it's a built-in font, which is really nice. If I want to change what this says from my text to, any writing, I can click right on my properties box. Now, does anyone not see a properties box on their Floriani if you're following along? If for some reason your properties box is gone, you don't see it, right here at the top, right next to the gear and the percentage, there's a little box that says properties when you hover over it. See how when I click on it, my properties go away or come back? So if your properties ever disappear, just click on that nice little button, it'll pop right back up. All right, so I'm going to click here where it says my text, and I'm going to write hello. And then at the bottom here, apply. Now, the other thing that happens sometimes when you have smaller screen resolutions is you may not see this button apply. That's because our sequence view likes to hang over it. So I'm going to see if I can display that on here. It won't let me overlap it. But if you hover over the top of the sequence view, it's hard to see on my screen because it's really tiny, but there's these two little lines and some triangles that are popping up over there. You'll left click and you can actually adjust where your sequence view is, and that way you can access your apply button. Before I changed my screen resolution, it actually would always pop up hovering over this, and it was kind of irritating. All right, so it's pretty easy to change what we want to say in here. I could say hello and hit enter and say good morning below that and hit apply. And it's automatically going to add another line below it. And it centers them to each other. Below where we type are all sorts of different settings. We have our height, which usually I don't touch this in here. I like to go to my pointer and change it. But right now it's telling me that my height is 0.79 inches. The spacing is the spacing between the letters. The fonts here are what font choices we have. The line spacing is a percentage. It's usually 25%, and that is the spacing between lines. So the spacing between hello and the spacing between good morning, like between the two words. Our width is 100%, which is based on a percentage of our height. Below that, we have our align. So right now it's aligned to the center. I could go left and hit apply. You know, like we're reading a good book where everything is skewed to the left. Or I could even go to the right. Give it a moment to catch up. There we go. And I can change how these are aligned. The slant is a way you can do a slight italicist to it. So I can change this, let's say, to a 3 and hit apply, and it'll give it a slight slant. So even in just this box alone, there's a lot we can do. But let's talk about font types. This is my favorite part, options. So here we have font, and below it says all fonts. If I click on that, there's all these different categories of fonts. If I click below that where it says Christina, I'm going to scroll up to the top. There is a ridiculous amount of fonts that are built into Floriani, and all of them have these weird little either letters or some sort of a symbol next to them. And there was a list of what these are, but I'm going to tell you what they stand for. So you're welcome to write that down or memorize it, hopefully, eventually. These different symbols, the BL that you see at the top here is block lettering. The 60 is micro font. The O is outline. BL is block. SC is script. AP is applique. This little F with a little pencil on it is actually a created font. So it's one that you font map, the one you purchased and you brought into the program. We're going to learn about how that works in a little bit. HW is handwriting. Oh, I exited out. Hold on. Get back in there. Where was I? RN is a run. So pretty much it's like a single run. It may go over the, like do a triple stitch or something like that, but it's not a satin stitch. We did the run. Trying to see if I'm missing anything. I think I covered all of those sections. So those are all there. And I can go in here and let's say I want to do this anniversary font, and I can just click on it and hit apply, and it'll automatically change what font I have here. So maybe I have a cute little flower here and I'm trying to figure out which font looks best. I can also go under where it says all fonts and change it to just one type. Let's say I only want script fonts. And then it's only going to show me those fonts with a little SC next to it. That's pretty cool. My favorite thing about picking out different fonts is this TTF button right here. That is our true type font. So if I click on this, and I click on where it says, in this case, Adobe Divana, below that, those look pretty, pretty familiar. Arial, Baskerville. That sounds like fonts that I have in Microsoft Word, right? Or one of those, maybe you have OpenOffice or text, Notepad, whatever program you use to work with writing. These are all true type fonts. Now, as a warning, not all true type fonts will lay out nicely when it comes to automatically digitizing them. So I'm going to click on Baskerville Oldface for a moment and hit apply. And it's going to automatically take that true type font and digitize it. Actually, that one looks pretty good. And I can also come over to my left-hand side of my screen and hit the 3D button, this little cube here on the left, and that will show me a little better of how this is going to stitch out. I'm going to reselect my lettering and go back in here. Now, if you notice, some of this kind of doesn't lay out nicely, and there's some ways we can fix that, and I'm going to show you guys how to adjust the individual letter spacing and everything manually in just a moment. But I want to show you a font that doesn't work. I'm going to see if I have one on here. try this Edwardian script. That does not sound promising for nice digitizing, which now that I said it out loud, oh yeah, here we go. So see how the G here kind of looks like it exploded in thread? That's because not all the fonts that you find are usable. So you want to play with it and test it. So, you know, I could sit there and I could actually there's a way you can manually retrace this font and make it work. So if you absolutely have to do this font for a logo and they need this font, otherwise, you know, they're gonna, I don't know, kidnap your firstborn or something like that. And really in that case, I'd be like, take them. But, you know, if you have to, there are ways around it, which that's something that we will go into how to break up the fonts. I'll do the little bit on that at the end of this class because it is way more in depth. So there are ways to make this work if we absolutely need it. But usually what I do is I just find a font that's easy. I don't want to spend 3 days digitizing just a couple words. So not all of them work. Now, these true type fonts, where do we find them? I'm going to show you guys something really cool. I'm hoping it allows me to, all right, stopped it. I'm going to stop share for a second. And we're going to re-screen share to the internet. Where is my internet? There it is. So when it comes to free fonts, oops, that's your guys' list. There we go. This is an example of a website. This one is called 1001freefonts.com. There are a ton of free font websites out there. They are free, all free. And I can go in here, for example, there's actually a whole Disney section. And you can scroll down. That's not Disney. It's still loading, that's why. But you can scroll down and you can download these fonts and apply them to Floriani. Apparently my computer is being really slow. Give me a moment here. Seeing if I can close some of my tabs to maybe take some pressure off my computer here. Well, either way, let's say that I have a font here that I want to use. Let's just use one of these ones that are popping up. Let's do this one, if it's going to let me. Download. Give me one moment. My internet has been questionable lately. But when you download one of these, what's going to happen, this is going to take forever, it's going to open up a little zip file. And I don't know if you guys can see it, it may not show you on your screen, but you want to click Open with File Explorer, and you want to extract that file. I'm actually going to stop share for a second and show you guys how the files work. So yeah, where you can download your own custom fonts. All right, so this is my weird File Explorer. I'm going to double click on this if it didn't automatically open. Hit Extract All. And it really doesn't matter where it goes. So I can just hit Extract. And then there is one that if you, I'm going to do details so you guys can see what this looks like. It's called a true type font file under type, and if you double click on it, you can hit this word install, and that's how you install this to your computer. If you have Floriani already open, it is not going to add it. You have to restart Floriani, but that's just one way to get a free font onto your program under the true type fonts. So I can hit install, it'll install it, and I can close all this all out. And I can go back into Floriani. Now, I do not remember at all what that was called. I think the font was called Remastered. So let's see if we can find it on here, because I downloaded that earlier for this display. Oh, here we go, Remachine. It was something with a re, and I'm gonna hit apply. Wow, that didn't work at all. Now, part of it might be that, actually, I don't know. Let's try adding some spacing and see what that does. No, that did nothing. So not all fonts work, so that's fine. I would then go back to the drawing board and find a different font. But a lot of these fonts that I have on here, for example, there's a stencil font. This is one I downloaded. See if it'll work. This one, oh, yep, it's not perfect. It's got some weird squiggles going on in here, and we can always fix that as well. But with free fonts, you can do a lot. All right, I'm gonna bring it into a kind of a more of a regular font and show you guys how to do some letter editing. Of course, this one actually looks pretty nice. So let's say, let me see if I could find one that gives me a little bit more issues. Ugh, not that many issues. Well, let's say I want to move around these letters. If I was still in my letter T, my screen would look like this, and it would have a little yellow box over the individual letters and a little blue box in between them. Or I should say a diamond, not actually a box. If you do not see this in your screen and you see a plain selection box like this one, don't fret. Just click on your letter T and your letter T again with that selected, and it'll bring you back into your font editing. Now, these little yellow boxes are my favorite because sometimes, especially with those free fonts, I find that sometimes the letter spacing is really weird. Or I should say the blue fonts here. Oop, there we go. So sometimes you have it like this. It'll just have it really spaced out for no reason. If you hover over the little blue diamond here, which diamonds are a girl's best friend after all, you can bring your letters a little closer. It actually will move the whole word closer, and you can play with this and squish each thing individually. So if you have some really odd spacing, because it's going from a true type font to an embroidery, it may not read out as well, and you can actually play with the spacing between them. The other thing that we can do over this little yellow box here is, let's say we want this H to be a little higher up. I can actually move the individual letter up. Then I could move a letter down. And see, I can actually move these and kind of make my own little custom thing. So it's all adjustable. Now, even in the selection box around here, there's a bunch of different buttons. There's, let's start with the blue one here. If I hover over the blue circle in the top right corner, it actually gives me the ability to rotate. I can left click and hold down and rotate this whole box. And again, this is manual. Oops. And you want to hover over until you see that little like circle pop up. Below that, I have this little, I think it's a pentagon. Looks like a tiny house on the bottom right. And if I hover over that, I can actually drag out this just widthwise. And then the one on top kind of brings the whole thing in and out. You know, makes the whole thing larger or smaller. The one on the bottom left, that little triangle, actually makes a slant. So I can italicize to the left or to the right. Now in our properties box, I could do a slant only to the right. Actually, I could do it left too if I do negative, but this is an easier way to do it because you can physically see that. And if you want to turn it back, I can always go back into my properties and go to 0 for a slant. There we go. Some of the other cool options, these little circles on the top and bottom, these change the shape of your envelope. So I can drag up, and now this does a little curve, and drag down, and now I have kind of this weird ovally shaped thing going on. But if I want this to curve around something, maybe I have vines that I have sitting around this, I can pull this into the right shape so it actually fits nicely into this, into whatever design I need. Now, some of the other options that I can do, I can right click on my design and I can actually click on envelope. Envelope, again, is the box in which my lettering sits in. So I can go back to rectangle, which means it'll shove it right back into its original shape. But I can also right click and go into envelope and do all these other types of shapes. They call them bridges and, you know, convex, and see, it does a very slight curve to it. So this is something that you want to play with to really kind of, you know, see what the different shapes are. Give my computer time to catch up. There we go. All right, so let's move into different types of font layout. This is just a regular true type font going horizontally. We can also do a circle, vertical, do it on a path. There's also a monogram designer and a way to bring in a regular true type font as artwork so you can do more with it. So I'm just going to delete this right off my screen. I got a blank screen going on. And I'm going to skip over circles to start and go into vertical, path, and then come back to the circles. Vertical is easy to show from, go away, cloud. There we go. Vertical is easy to go from horizontal to vertical because it's the same idea. I'm going to change this font type though. Let's go from a true type font to a regular font because it's a little bit. There we go. So I'm going to write the word hello once again. And now this goes vertical. That's really the only big difference, is that it's just vertical. It's the same idea, you know, when I have, I can't do more than one line. If I wanted to have more than one, I would just click on my T, click on the vertical again, and, you know, say my next word. And add them in individually if I wanted to have multiple lines of lettering. So I can't do lines like the horizontal does, just because there's not really an easy way for it to array them, but I can still do that manually. So again, vertical, not that different from horizontal, just vertical. Next is our path. So when you click on your screen, it opens up this box, which there are a lot of really cool paths. And what a path is it's quite literally a path for your words to follow. So for example, this swirl one is really cool. And we're gonna quote Cinderella. And just type that in there and hit apply. It says a dream is a wish your heart makes. Oh wow, that exploded. So because this is too big here, I can actually change how this is laid out on my path. This one rotates. This little guy, I know there's a way to push it. Let's see. Yeah, so this little tiny house in here, I can actually use this one to adjust and kind of shove it into the path. I can give that weird slant, which I don't know if I want to do a slant in this particular style of path. And I can also spread this out or make it really smaller with the other little tiny house button. Although this font is not necessarily conducive to this particular shape, I would suggest a small font. So any of those 60mm fonts, for an example, would work a little bit easier with this particular style of font. Although now it's so tiny, you can barely read it. So these paths are pretty easy to play with. And I can also right-click on this and go back into text paths and change it to something else. And I'm going to choose a bigger font so you guys can see it again. Give my computer a moment to catch up. There we go. So this one has a weird curve this way. So I like these different text paths for more sentences. So like that's really fun. And you could have, you know, butterflies and things around that, as you can see. And the same buttons exist in this as they do in your regular text. So if you notice, you know, the M and the A are oddly far away from each other. So I can just hover over that little diamond button and bring it a little closer together. And that makes it look a little bit nicer. So these are our text. Oops, my computer just yelled at me. Oh my goodness, there we go, now it's selected. So these are our text paths. So these again are something I really suggest playing with. They're a lot of fun. This simple path is my favorite. It's the same one as built into many of our machines where it does that perfect slight little curve. And there's also a way that you can use your own paths where you can draw a line and apply to a custom path. You can export a line as well. And you can even, go away. All these pop-ups on my computer. I can also edit my baseline here and move and adjust this if I needed it to be more dramatic. No, it didn't work. I double clicked and everything. And now it's not letting me select anything. Oy. But anyway, I can also edit my baseline and play with this. So these are our text paths. So I'm going to delete that for right now since my computer is being cranky. And we're going to go into circles. Circles are a lot of fun. I use them a lot on patches. So let's say, for example, we do a lot of Cub Scout events. So I'll say something like Pack 61 and we'll do 2020 on the bottom. And I'll hit apply and we'll zoom out. And then usually in the middle, I'll just throw a little symbol in here just to kind of show you. Let's do an anchor. That's a really sideways anchor, but we can fix that. Ugh, if I could click on it, there we go. So, you know, this a circle design is one where you have it curving around a design like this. And I could take this and I could even put a circle around it and turn it into an actual patch, or I could just leave it like this and put it on a shirt. There's a lot of people that like logos where they have their writing that curves around an item.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna mute whoever that is. Okay, so what we want to do here is, let's say we want this to be, let's say, more dramatic, more curved. Maybe we don't want the font as big. Maybe we want to put more writing in here. So Mansfield, Connecticut, Pack 61. So when I start piling more letter into here, more letters with a plural, that doesn't look very nice, does it? So right now I'm in a regular selection, so I'm going to go back into my T, and I can adjust this. So there are 3 different main buttons for adjusting our lettering. The first one, this little black dot down here, allows me, oh, there it goes, to kind of maneuver or squish the lettering so it'll all fit. So there we go, that looks much better. This blue one allows me to resize my circle. And the black one up here is actually the height. So I can make this very short or bigger, depending on what I'm looking for. So again, they're pretty simple to adjust, and I find that sometimes if I have an item, let's say it's more oval, a circle is not going to work in that. You want to go into your regular paths and do a curve up here and then another under curve down here to allow it to adjust to that shape, because this literally does a circle, and that's it. You only have a top line and a bottom line. These work great again for patches or around logos, things like that. You know, maybe you want to have a cute flower and maybe have, you know, kid's name wrapped around it for their birthday. A lot of different things you can do with this particular circle. Okay, so that is pretty much all the basic generic path types. So I'm going to pause for a moment and chug some of my caffeine sitting next to me. So if anyone has questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask anything related to the paths.
So Chelsea, how much of this can we do in regular Floriani without this add-on?
Oh, this is regular Floriani.
Oh, okay. I'm going to mute myself. My dogs are barking.
That's okay. I have a turtle that barks. Literally, turtles bark. It's really weird. Yeah, this is all regular Floriani. The Lettering Master, it adds on some more fonts and things like that. I have not played with this enough to necessarily tell you all the details with it. I have actually not, this is as far as I've gotten, is just holding the CD. So there are some videos I know that I think it's Trevor who did them on Floriani's website on the Lettering Master, if you guys are interested in adding that. This is more just the basics of Floriani. And if I have enough interest, I will learn this and do a separate class on this one and the Sketch and Stitch and some of the other add-ons. Did anyone else have any other questions before I head on? All right.
I do.
Oh, go ahead.
How come sometimes if you go in to edit your, you've got your design, you go up to your T to get that back, How come it wants to add another text in there?
Oh, so you want to make sure you have it selected regular first, like select it in your sequence view, and then click your T, because if you don't have it selected, it will open up a new font.
Thank you.
You are welcome. I have done that mistake many, many times to the point where I've filled up my screen with fonts accidentally, so that's how I know. All right, so I know you guys are really excited about the next part, Monogram Designer. Woo! I know the excitement of the, I don't know, pandemic. All right, so our Monogram Designer is symbolized by this M. M for monogram. That one's pretty good. And you click on it, left click right on your screen, and there we go. I'm gonna make this a little bigger for you guys to see. Actually, I can just zoom in. There we go. There's our cute little monogram. That's actually really tiny. Well, we'll worry about resizing it later. So what happens with your Monogram Designer? Now, first of all, let's talk a little bit about monograms themselves. A monogram is the first letter of your first name, your last name in the middle, and then your middle name at the end. This is something that surprisingly a lot of people don't know. You know, it's like, let's do my initials, which is now CKF in this. Oh, the F just looks weird. I liked it better with a C, because then I had all C's for my initials. But you type in your letters in the order you want. It puts it exactly in that order. And over here is our monogram choices. It automatically went to monogram 1, because I don't think I've actually used the Monogram Designer on this computer at all. But there is a bunch of different options. Now, when you scroll through the different monograms, you'll notice that some have pictures. For example, engraved does not have a picture around it. Wow, that's big. That's weird looking too. But this garden monogram right below it does. I'm going to zoom out again. So below that is a little button that pops up. If it shows a picture when you're scrolling through the fonts, that means you have the option to add decor. Under the decor, each font has their own specified decor options. So I'm just going to choose one and hit apply. And it automatically adds this cute little embroidery around it. And I'll click outside so you can see. These look like, I'm actually not really sure what those look like. Something Art Deco-ish, sort of, I don't know. But I can scroll through and there's a bunch of different options. Let's go back to that monogram. Oops, just exited me out. Let's go back to monogram 1. And this one now has these cute little corners. I actually really like this. It's simple, it's clean. So make sure one thing too, when you're doing your monograms, you could even add custom designs around this if you want. You want it to be still legible and simple. You don't want to have so much stuff around it that you lose track of the letters. But again, this one has its own cute little monogram choices. I can even do a box around it. Make some keychains. I know you guys want my initials and everything, right? But that's pretty much the Monogram Designer. I can still space out my letters, apply a height, a width, and even do a slight slant if I want. There's not too much to this program because you're only using 3 letters. Now, one thing, let's say I wanted my letter K to be much bigger. I'm going to do no decor. Now, I can't change this individually at the moment. It's all one box. But what I can do is go over to my sequence view, right-click, and hit break up text. Now, this is important because we're going to come back to the same function to show you how to edit fonts if you find that one letter isn't working. And of course, it's not actually breaking it up by letter, is it? Okay, there we go. So what happens if you are following along or if you're looking at my sequence view, it breaks it up into all these crazy little lines and runs. Usually with your regular font, it'll still show the letters. This one does not. So you want to just kind of left click and try to draw a box around the letter you want bigger. And then you can adjust this and make it bigger, which still looks pretty good with that color size. And then usually what I like to do is I like to change the color. My color box just disappeared. Well, that's irritating. Where did my color box go? Well, anyway, usually I change the color, but apparently my Floriani doesn't have a color box. Give me one moment. The zoom thing is blocking it. No, it's checked off. Weird. Well, anyway, usually I change colors in this case so I can separate the letter out. Yeah.
I think it's something with the program. I've lost mine every once in a while, and I don't know what happens. Then it'll come back.
Yeah, that's weird. I've never actually had that happen before, but I've heard that it does that. Because usually if you go to toolbars and you could just click color palette, it'll come back. But yeah. Unless, no. I don't know. It got eaten by the Floriani monster. It's fine. Luckily, we're not doing too much with color in today's class. But a lot of times I'll change the color of the letter so that way it separates it out in the sequence view, which allows my job a little easier because then I don't have to keep trying to draw this box out. But that is the basics of the monogram designer. Again, not too much to it. It's pretty easy. So let's go into our import true type font or true type artwork. So in this case, you know, I want to say, I'm gonna write the word cat, and I can select my font, and I can do, let's do this whatever font this is, and hit OK. This brings it in as artwork. So what is artwork? Artwork is a vector file. It is brings it in as a scalable vector file. What that means is I can actually apply stitches to this. So I can take this lovely letter C, and I can do a fill. I can do a standard fill. These are very tiny, by the way, so they don't necessarily look the nicest. I can also do an auto satin, or, which the auto satin obviously looks much nicer, or I could do an applique. Oh, good God, maybe not that size. Let's hit undo. All right, well, let's first take our word cat, and I'm gonna go up into my properties. Oh yeah, it's only an inch. Let's make this 6 inches. I'm gonna double click on my magnifying glass to zoom in, and I'm gonna turn this whole thing into applique. There we go, 6 inches is a little bit better. And let's say that I don't want a satin stitch. I want this to be a blanket stitch. I can do that. And the blanket stitch is a little bit big. It looks like it takes up the entire letter. So I could even take the width here down to a 2. That's a little bit better. And now I have, I'm going to remove the cat below. Now I can put in fabric. It actually has the placement stitch, the tack down stitch, and my final decorative stitch in it. And I can take any troop type font that, again, I got for free on the internet and download it and turn it into applique right on here. That's what I typically use this Auto Artwork Wizard for. I don't have to. I can go in here and let's turn this back into artwork for a moment. I could take this and cut it out of my Scan and Cut. All I have to do is hit File, Save As, and I can actually save this into here as a SVG file, which is readable by most Scan and Cuts, or an FCM, which is your Scan and Cut cutting file. So you can take letters and do a lot with them. Now, if you notice, there's still, the letter C here is a little shaky. I'm actually gonna break these guys apart for a moment. Click on just the C. If I want this to be a little smoother, I can right click on this and go to Simplify, Smoothen. And wow, look how much better that's gonna look. So sometimes with that auto artwork, it does get a little funky, and our A has decided to separate. We're gonna group that together. Come on. Oh, we are grouped. Well, that's not helpful. There we go. And I can do the same thing. I can do this simplify, smoothen, and it gives me a much prettier letter A. So sometimes with the true type font artwork, say that 5 times fast, you may need to play with it. Just like I can go into my shape tool on this top left, and it brings me the basic shapes. I can even delete some of these points and make it a little smoother that way. So you may need to do some more fine tuning. Delete that point and see how like it looks nice and smooth now. So anyway, the true type art, font art, oh my goodness. What does it say? Import true type font artwork. Woo. When we do bring those in, you can use them for a lot of different things. I can take this and let's say I just want the letter C on the back of a jacket, but I want it gigantic. I can take this, I can go into my properties and I can make this 6 inches high. Well, 8 inches high, 6 inches wide. This is a huge letter C. Now I can apply an auto satin, but of course it's not really going to do a nice satin because it's too wide. So I could apply a different stitch like cornrow or something that is going to have more stitches on it. I love cornrow, by the way. If you've never seen this one, it's my favorite fill. It looks really nice on letters. So think outside the box when it comes to our true type font artwork. Okay, before we get too much into our font play and adding fonts and creating our own fonts, I want to show you guys a few more things about our regular fonts. So we have our regular, I'm just going to leave this with my text. Let's say, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger actually. I'll just go into my selection and manually type in a size. Let's say this is 8 inches. We want this 8 inches wide. Now, when it comes to our satin stitching, the bigger we make our fonts, the more risk we're going to have of something snagging on these stitches and ripping them out. In fact, they do not recommend having a width of past I believe it's 1.5 millimeters or something like that. You don't want a huge thick satin stitch because it literally just stitches from left to right, and it actually can tear out. So if you're doing a very large letter, there's also the option in here to go into this little purple star in your properties. You can go under pattern and you can choose different patterns. Let's go with pattern 5, see what it looks like. That looks pretty cool. Not only does it do a decorative effect, but it allows your needle to penetrate multiple areas inside the letter, giving you a more resilient embroidery for larger sizes. So I've had a lot of people say, hey, it's college time and all the college students are going back. They're super excited. I want to embroider my kid's name across the back of this jacket, but it has to be, you know, the kid's name is Bob, and it has to be big. You have to use something other than a satin stitch. So there are many different fills to choose from under here. You can even go, you can choose a standard fill, or you can do that true type artwork and go into your fancy fills. But there's a lot of options right here. And just hit apply and it changes your fill type. So just something I wanted to mention before we continued. And then one other thing, if you find that you need to do some fine tuning on these, you can always click on your text, right click on it in your sequence view and break up the text. I can hit plus and then all these letters are now separate. I cannot edit them with the text feature anymore, but if I wanted them, you know, maybe one of these I want to have be a satin. I don't know if it's going to let me change that. Maybe one of these I want to be artwork. Maybe the next one I want it to be an applique. I can go through and do each one a different fill. So if you wanted it all to be different. Oh, so go ahead.
If you hover over the font, it'll tell you the maximum size. Is that only
Yes.
for doing in satin, so that if you wanted the maximum size was supposed to be an inch and you wanted that particular font and you wanted it to be 3 inches, if you changed the fill, that you could use it?
Yes. Yeah, they always show you the largest recommended size with satin because that's the default for the stitch. But if you do it as a different stitch type, you can make it larger. And also for you, Mary, the other way I can get back into my text editing if I have it selected regular is to right click on it. And there's this button right here that says edit text. And that's the other way to get into there. So I forgot about that until I just saw it. But anyway, I can convert this to artwork and even break up the text as I showed you before to do some more fine tuning. The other reason I may want to do this is, let's say the Y here, I don't like how this Y does this weird swing thing. I can actually change the shape of it. And you have to break up the text to do this. And I could, I don't know, do this weird thing here that I'm doing, which looks really awful. I'm gonna add a point. And I can actually customize the shape of my letter here and make it really long looking. But I can go in here and alter these individually if I need. So there's a real lot you can do with text just with the basic functions in Floriani. All right, I'm gonna go into a couple other things about, I think we're all done with our basic text unless anyone has any questions, but I wanted to show you guys font play and how to do font mapping and things like that. Excuse me.
Oh, don't forget the chicken. The chicken.
Okay, so I'm going to show you guys font play first, which is a really nice handy feature. It's this big letter F. It's not actually swearing at you. If you click on it, this gives you the option to preview fonts. So the default is, you know, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, which displays one of, at least one of every single letter in the English alphabet. Pretty cool. Or you could type custom, and I could write I love tea and hit apply, and it'll actually show me what it looks like in all of these different fonts. So this is a great way if you don't want to have to keep going back into your properties and changing the font. You can preview here before you apply it. It'll only do it in a horizontal version, and it also gives you the recommended heights and things like that. And it actually says here minimum height for satin outlines on this one, so it does actually specify satin. I can also go from embroidery to TrueType. With TrueType though, it only loads it in as a vector file. So just keep that in mind, it doesn't auto-digitize from this particular program. I'm gonna go back to embroidery. So once let's say I love this font right here, I really like it, I can take it now and hit import, and it's gonna load it right into my screen for me. And I can of course edit it still in here. But it's a great way to test out fonts and figure out which one you want to use. Let's see, color play. Word play is another one related to fonts. I'm just going to talk about this really quick. This one's, it's more fun, but I can choose a different shape. Let's see here. It's a lot of stress. I got to choose a shape. Let's do a sewing machine. We'll do an old-fashioned one. And over in the text section on the top right, I can write lots of words. So thread, bobbin. I'm only writing antique because this is an antique machine. You know what? Actually, I'll leave it off because that's too long of a word. Let's do needle. I don't know. Throw in a bunch of ones. I can choose a font, choose the max amount of colors and minimum spacing and height, all sorts of things here. I can also choose if I want my shape type to be artwork or a steel stitch, which is a satin. I really liked it to stitch out the outline because it looks really cool. And I'm going to hit generate. And it takes a couple minutes to generate, but what this does is it takes a shape and it automatically fills it in with all sorts of different words. And I can always go in and edit each word afterwards, make them bigger, smaller, even change the font type and really customize this further. But if you're looking for a quick gift, there's a lot of baby shapes and, you know, cutesy things, and you can put a bunch of words in there with those shapes and, you know, just embroidered on the front of a pillow. Look at that. Isn't that pretty cool? It is related to words because it literally just kind of throws up words into that shape. And I could stitch this onto a t-shirt, a pillow, a jacket. I do not have to use this yellow color. In fact, I'm going to put this on my screen and show you guys briefly another option. It looks a little bit discombobulated in here, but I can choose all items and go into my color play. As soon as that loads, I can actually choose a theme. See, there's a nice one. Dusky purple, that sounds interesting. And it changes all of those colors to a theme. And the color play is really nice when you do this word cloud because it just kind of does random colors. But now it's cute pinks and purples and it all matches. And of course, I could print out my thread chart with this and actually match the exact Floriani colors to this. So it's a cool little function. It's a little like hidden gem in Floriani. Not necessarily font specific, but hey, you know, I figured I'd show you guys this because I usually do with any of our font classes. Okay. So, yep, go ahead.
Can you put a word like in that little spool holder? Can you add a word to that spot?
Yes, you could. Just like you would normally add text, you would just manually put that text in there and make it fit.
Okay.
Okay, so the other thing I want to show you guys is the name drop. I'm just going to throw in our happy little anchor again. And let's say we have Bob's Construction, which has nothing to do with anchors. I don't know why I'm writing that, but that's what we're going with. And then I have to make, let's say, 8 of these shirts. And I have to choose a different font here. Sure. So I have to do a bunch of these different shirts, and I have to do different names on each. And I don't want to have to sit there and manually delete this guy's name and type in the next one. So what I can do, I'm going to go up and, is it going to let me do it? Why aren't you selected now? It was just open. So name drops, of course it's going to give me some issues. The way name drops is supposed to work. Oh, there it goes. So I guess because I had multiple fonts on there, I was confusing it. But what I can do is I can take my, this is the main design that is showing, and I can have Bob, and it tells me the font and all that stuff in center. And then let's say I have Dave. And we have Sandy, and we'll say Aaron, and you can keep going. And once you're all done, you hit save, and it's going to save it. I can also hit preview and see it's going to show me what these look like. So this is a really quick way to do a bunch of different names on a shirt. Usually your logo is hand traced. You don't have multiple fonts on there. So if you have multiple fonts loading, I guess it can overload. So worst case, you know, just add that after, or just have the font you want changed selected. But that is pretty much how that works. And once I hit save, it saves them all into my outputs. Now my desktop is probably covered in these little names. I'll have to delete those after. And I can just load them into my machine and embroider them. Pretty easy. So if any of you are doing mass amounts of orders and making bank, you know, while home during the pandemic, this is an easy way to do it. Does anyone have any questions about that? Because I like to touch upon some of the weird font related things before I go into loading up your own fonts. Anyone have any questions so far?
Chelsea, just to clarify, when you use the name drop, it would, like, if you had, I think you had 4 names there, so it would create 4 PES files for you to use?
Yes. I'm actually going to check my desktop. So it's just pausing my screen share. Let's see what file type.
You've just saved me a lot of work. Thank you.
You're welcome. So this actually saved it as a WAF, and I have a feeling it's because I didn't specify. So let's go back in there for a second. I'm going to throw Bob back. Oop. Apparently I'm going to type too fast for my computer to recognize what I'm doing. We're going to put Bob back on there. Bob is pretty popular today. And I'm going to throw a quick logo on there again. Let's do a basketball this time, really shake it up. That basketball looks really bad. We'll pretend it's a nicer basketball. So I'm going to go back into my name drops and, oh yeah, see, so save formats WAF. So you just want to make sure to change that to your PES design. But worst case, if you forgot to do that, not a big deal. I'm going to show you guys a really nice trick. This happened to me yesterday, I think. Yeah, it was yesterday. I'm making one of those freestanding lace pumpkins, and I couldn't find the design, went through album, and saved them onto my USB, and it saved them all as WAFs for some reason. So all I have to do, if that happens, is go to my tools. Oh, hold on. Got some people joining us. I'm going to go into the tools and into batch converter. And under batch converter, I can choose wherever my file is. So in this case, this is the desktop, which I'd be a little wary of using my entire desktop. I'd probably put these in a folder first. And I could say, all right, I want you to find all the WAF files that are on the desktop. and I want you to turn them into PES. And it'll convert everything that's WAF in that folder in that area to PES. So if you ever make that mistake and forget to do the PES as your preferred file type, not a problem. With a few clicks of a button here, you can convert them all. This is also great if you had, old Elna designs or Viking or whatever, and you can convert them all with just that as well. Okay. So I'm going to delete Bob and our horrible looking basketball. There we go. And we're going to go into some other tools. Let's go into our font importer. So this is the function of where you would add in a font that you've purchased, which will add it permanently to your embroidered file types in Floriani. So the first thing you want to do, ooh, my screen, there we go. My zoom button thing keeps hiding my screen. I'm going to click new font and name it. Now, my only problem is I have absolutely no idea what fonts I have, so I'm just going to name it question for right now. And to find my font, I'm going to go into this folder button. And let's see, because I'm pretty sure on my desktop, I have some fonts under Anita Good Design. Oh, here we go. Clementine. Perfect. Letters. Okay. Perfect. There's my font. So I'm going to rename. I'm actually going to go back into new font and say don't save and rename this Clementine. And then I usually like to add the author if it's an Anita Good Design or, which of course it's, well, let me type past Anita Goo. So it's going to stay that. It's now Anita Goo. That's kind of funny. And what I want to do is pick a size first. So if you notice, there's 3 different A's that pop up here. And if you look, they're different sizes. This is a 5.5, this is a 4.2, and that's a 3.1. I like to choose the one in the middle. To be honest, it's like resizing any other design. Usually Floriani is pretty good about it, although it is also adding it into your regular fonts, so you may want it to be on the smaller side. So you know what, let's choose the smaller one. There is a way that you can get this to auto-populate all of these as well. Usually you start with the letter M, but the letters have to be obviously named, which means A.PES, B.PES, C.PES, forgot my alphabet for a moment. It is very, very rare that you're going to purchase a font and actually have it labeled A.PES, B.PES. It's usually crazy numbers or something like that. So I usually don't try to make it automatically map it. I usually just start putting them in there. Oops, I gotta scroll up to the top. So I'm gonna grab my letter A and put it in where the A is. This is your reference letter if it was going to auto map. If you have a file type that, again, that's A.PES, B.PES, you can add an M first and it should auto map it. It may not. And then we're going to scroll down, and it's a little bit of work, but it doesn't really take too long. Usually at night, if I purchase a font, which is usually when I'm purchasing things as late as night because I have no control by that point and just buy stuff, I will sit and load them in this program. It doesn't take too long. As you can tell, I'm already pretty good in there. And this is an old Anita Good Design font that I've had for some time. It's got some really beautiful monogram designs. And of course, a lot of places have fonts. I know Embroidery Library has a ton. Somewhere I have a little ladybug font from them. And pretty much, I'm just going to show you guys every step of this. So bear with me while I load these in. I'm over halfway done. And you guys are welcome to ask questions if you'd like while I'm doing this. I can multitask, I promise.
Hi, Chelsea. You and I did this in class one day.
Yes.
And I was dragging them in, and you're not dragging them in. How is that working? You're just double clicking on them?
No, I am dragging.
You are?
Yep, it may not be showing you, but I'm left clicking and dragging in.
Oh, really? I didn't see that. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, double clicking doesn't do anything that I know of. At least it doesn't work on my computer, so I'm going to assume it doesn't.
Okay, I'm just not watching your drags. I can't see that you're dragging. So
it may not be showing you in the Zoom, so.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Now, these are a small applique letter font, so what I may want to do too, This is Clementine applique. And I just realized, of course, there's a regular font in here too. I'm going to scroll up as well. There's the and symbols. There's no lowercase in this, so I'm not going to worry about it, but I can scroll down and find symbols. Did I go past the and? Nope, there's letters, there's the and I'm just going to throw our and symbol in there. And there we go. So now, once I am set, hold on a second, my Zoom box is covering my save. I'm going to hit save. It takes a little while, and it's going to add this into my Floriani. So I could also hit new font and then scroll down, and I could do Clementine regular and then just do this regular font here and add that in. That's more of your normal font size. I'm going to do that later. Now, let's see if it pops up. Sometimes you have to restart Floriani. Sometimes it adds it right in. Let's go to all fonts. And Clementine, there it is. And I'm just going to do my initials, hit apply. And there we go. So that wasn't too bad. Much, much easier than sitting there and trying to load every single letter in individually on your embroidery machine. So I love to do this on my Floriani, and that lettering master program also has that font mapping built in. So it is such a fabulous thing to do. Does anyone have any questions on font mapping? Okay, so with some fonts out there, there are some really weird ones that have multiple colors in them. I don't know where my Ladybug font is, and that was a great one to show because it actually had multiple little colors. So you could change the colors inside. Like this one's an applique, actually, so I could show you. In my sequence view here, I can actually open this up and it'll show me the placement, the tack down, and the final decorative stitch. If you have a font that has multiple colors in it, it will also show you those in the same area. This doesn't actually know that they're appliques, so they're not labeled that way. They just know that there's 3 different colors. So you can also load your applique fonts into here as well. Okay, that was pretty much everything I wanted to cover in Floriani. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop recording now because we went over all the basics of the fonts and had a font map and a bunch of other things. And I will take any questions that you have that are sometimes not even related to fonts. All right, so let me just stop my screen sharing and stop recording.